Robbie Wheaton typically is with us, but he has a mountain of work, so he didn't make it today. But we're going to be talking about things that you can do to be ready for 2021. And, we just went through 2020. It was a banner year for craziness. And 2021 is not looking a lot different. And so because of that, I just wanted to go through some things that I think are important. Some of these things are what we've talked about in the past, but we're going to have more of a comprehensive list of putting some stuff together. Excuse me. I don't have COVID, but we're really trying to make sure that everyone is prepared. Everyone is, in good standing, because here's the thing, guys, in struggle, we learn. In struggle, there is opportunity. And we need to make sure, though, that we have our bases covered. And after what we've gone through this year, guys, if you're not at least doing some things that are outside the norm, being prepared, then, you really should be, not only for you, but for your family. So the first thing I just want to kind of talk about, the first thing I really want to talk about is we really appreciate Sportsman's Guide for sponsoring today's episode. And you can get a $20 off every $100 purchase using SOOTCH, SOOTCH, in the coupon code. And guys, it is great. It works. I use it myself when I buy certain items. In fact, we're going to talk about a little bit of that today, but it's a lot of surplus stuff. But, anything that you can imagine, Sportsman's Guide has it. So we really appreciate them. One thing, though, that you need to start out with, and it's something, again, that is built kind of the basis of our channel, is for you to be prepared. The better that my neighbor's prepared, the better I'm prepared. And so that's my thing, is for you to be prepared. First off, guys, is your basics, your water, and however you want to do it. I mean, if you want to store up water, if you want to have rain catchment systems, if you have water put back, if you have filters, we use the big Berkey. Your food, of course, canned food, guys, will last almost indefinitely. And so that's with the modern heat processes and the way they put this together, the sterilization. These are great options. And of course, your dried beans and rice. Also, of course, the big one is toilet paper. Your goods, the things that you just use every day, hygiene things such as like these Clorox wipes or hand sanitizer, because let's face it, guys, we're still in the midst of COVID-19 lockdowns and things. So we just want to make sure that we keep our hands clean, respect people's distance. The masks are really not effective, but a lot of people feel they are. But those are some things, guys, that you just need to kind of handle, and your basic medical stuff. With some of the 911 possibilities of delays, you may want to grab a couple of trauma kits to be able to, to stabilize someone if they're really injured. And so a lot of areas are having trouble getting through 911. So, you want to have those things kind of covered. And that's stuff that's basic that we've been talking about for a long time. But we're going to take it a step farther. In fact, we're going to do the 10 top things that are important to be ready for in 2021. So basics. Secondly, guys, is a go bag. Now, when I say go bag, I'm not talking necessarily about a bug out bag. This is my get home bag. I keep it in my vehicle. I mean, it's fully stocked with things that I may need, whether it's, water filter, whether it's fire starting capability, whether it's shelter, those kind of things. I have videos on this. And in fact, I just did a video with this specific bag on maintaining your bag, making sure you have the items in there. And you can go back and refer to that. There is a search engine in the Sensible Prepper channel. You can go and just click on it, and it'll bring up a lot of this stuff. But guys, one thing about a bug out is that if you bug out, you're a glorified refugee, and you really need a place to go to, number one. But honestly, if I have 20 minutes to prepare to bug out of a place, I'm going to load my car up with food and supplies and essentials and all the things I need, not something I can carry on my back. Do you need to have a bug out bag ready? Yes. I mean, your house could catch on fire. You need to escape quickly. You just need to have time to grab your bag, or, you're being attacked in some way. Definitely one of the things that, should be in your toolbox, but it should be at the back of your toolbox. And so it's just one of those last resort things. I think John Lovell did a great job on one of the videos he recently did, saying why I ditched my bug out bag. And then he goes into a lot of reasons why you really should have one, but That's not your main thing. The main thing is bunkering in. And I think with the current situation, I think that's really what you're going to be seeing. So, you definitely want to have some kind of go bag, all your items prepared. Each one of our family members and a lot of our friends have bags that either I've made for them, and they're in their car at all times. And if something ever happens, and guys, seriously, it doesn't have to be a crisis. It can be a personal SHTF where it just happens to you. And so having some items put back is just a smart idea. Okay, now number 3. And this is one, guys, we haven't touched on a lot, but I did recently in a video, is gasoline, and having some kind of gasoline. Number 1, keep your cars filled. Keep them at least above 3/4 of a tank. Anytime you're driving, keep your car filled with gas. Make sure that all your family cars are filled with gas. But also having some gas storage. Now, sometimes that can be expensive, coming in with a tank and having it filled. There's a lot around that. One thing I do is have just the military jerry cans. Now, these are just about 5 gallons. I think they're 20 liters. I have some 30-liter cans. I did a review on that just recently. I got these at Sportsman's Guide, and they had the surplus and they had brand new ones. And these are the Wavians. They're made in Europe. They're really excellent. And so I have a number of these and keep gas in them for the different reasons, just in case you need it. Now, you want to make sure you have some stable or some kind of additive to be able to put in there to give your gas longer life. And so that is one thing. 2 is you want to make sure that you use non-ethanol gasoline. With the ethanol, you have that corn, that alcohol, and it can form condensation, and it can actually, especially long term, ethanol gas is not good. So you want to make sure you can find some place that sells non-ethanol gas. That's a big one. Okay, and so guys, and be careful when you do store your gasoline. One of the things I do like about this is that it's metal and that it's made to store gasoline and to store it safely. And so that's one thing too that you want to take care of. Sorry guys, with the live, I've just got a list, and so I'm just going to kind of go down it to make sure I don't miss anything. Now, another thing is your security. Guys, it's a basic human right for self-defense. It's a basic human right. We should be able to defend ourselves. And obviously the firearm is the number 1 way to defend yourself in a really dire situation. It's the great equalizer. You could have a cheerleader that weighs 100 pounds versus a linebacker that weighs 230 or 250, and it equalizes the situation. And so that's obviously number 1. But guys, in the days that we live right now, one thing I would really recommend, and I have, is pepper spray. Now here I just picked up this new, this is a Saber Red. It's one of the ones I really like. And this is a little bit larger, but I keep personal ones. All the family members have them. And guys, if you find yourself in some sort of protest or riot that gets violent, pepper spray is going to be your best option to get out of that situation. More than a firearm, more than a stick or, whatever, because you can be overcome really easily. So pepper spray to me is something great to keep, have in your car, keep on your person, especially if you're in those situations. And then, of course, your knives, other items, whether it's a Billy Jack or something like that. But again, those can be taken away from you pretty easily. And so really, to me, firearms, a knife, and pepper spray are some of my top self-defense type items. But security also means having good lighting around your house. We have a driveway alarm. And so anybody that comes down the driveway, it sets that off. We know that somebody's pulling in. The dogs know the sound. They know to look out the window. Also, we have one that we're putting in the back of the house that'll actually work in conjunction. And so, in fact, I have a video on that as well, driveway alarms, but security measures, making sure that you know your property, know what's going on in case some people are coming around and messing around with you. Another important item for security is a good pair of binoculars. And guys, one thing about binoculars, somebody can be at a distance and you can't really tell what they're doing. With binoculars, you can see. So if they're a threat or if they're not, you can kind of go ahead and kind of assess the situation. But that also lends itself to night vision, and having some sort of night vision, even if it's one of the inexpensive Gen 2s or even Gen 1, is something that you can have a little more advantage at night. Of course, if you want to go all out and you get your PVS 14, Psionics makes a really good quality night vision that's about $1,000. Well, I think they're actually less than that. They're about $600. But find some good night vision. That is something that gives you added capability to your security. And so there are some steps that you need to take. And then we're going to go with number 5, and then we're going to go to some questions. Number 5 is gear organization. Guys, have your bag assembled. A lot of people, they have a bag and they're kind of thinking about it and they have a few things in it. Or, you have a battle belt. In fact, I just dropped mine. Let me get it out. Okay, so we have this is a battle belt, of course, plate carriers, things like that. Go ahead and have them maintained. Make sure that they're ready to go and that you have things organized. You know where it is. It's kind of the Minuteman concept. You may have to step it up. You may have to ratchet it up a little bit. And so having your gear together in one location, of course, that also relates to your security with your firearms. Make sure they're maintained. Make sure that you have a sling on your rifle. Make sure you have a light. Light's very important to have on any firearm. But those kind of security measures and then having your gear set aside is something that, when you're in a critical situation and you're the adrenaline's pumping and you don't really know what to do, you might not be able to find the different items that you need. So you need to have it staged in one place that you know where it is, it's ready to go, and you can just go with it. And so those are the first 5. And so let's go ahead and take a break. If you got a couple of questions, we're going to take a few. We're not going to take a lot of questions because this is more specific. Do we have some?
The Maverick Prepper asked, bear spray? Question mark.
Bear spray is an excellent idea. This is kind of an in-between between the two. In fact, my wife carries a security bag, especially if she's traveling anywhere. And in her bag, she has the bear spray. And Frontier they're made by Saber Red, or the same company. Frontier, that's really a good one. So yes, highly recommend that.
Joe Joick asked, tips on long-term gasoline storage.
Well, finding a good container. One of the problems is with your plastic containers is they degrade over time. They can get moisture in them, but if that's what you have, it's good to have those filled as well. But stable, and there's some others out there. In fact, I've just been using Stable for a long time, but there are some that actually are better. And so I would just look at that. In fact, I Googled it. It was like 10 different of the best fuel stabilizers. You can just look and see. But Stable was number 2 on that list, and it's just one that I know. And so that's one thing, because you do want to have good gasoline and you want to keep it as long as you can.
Jeffrey Slinker asks, Such, do you have a set of family and friends that are locations to go to if you had to leave? Do you have that planned?
Yes. Yeah, we have it planned. In fact, we have a prepper group, which I've talked about a few times, which is actually on this list. But having people that you're organized with, that have the same values you do, that, whether it's family. Now, we have a lot of family that's out of town. And so that's not going to really be something that maybe in a certain situation, we still have those locations locked down. But we have local locations as well. And so we have a number of friends in this area that we meet together, not necessarily to come just here where we are, even though there are some that are planning that. We have some that are just in other areas of town that may not be affected, in different ways. So definitely have a plan. If you're thinking, to bug out is crazy unless you have a plan. Years ago, we were coming back from the NRA convention in Louisville, and we were going through a really wilderness. In fact, I think it was a national park, and there was some kind of disruption up the road, and the traffic was backed up for miles. That's one thing you got to consider, is that if something were to happen and you're trying to bug out, even in your vehicle, you could get trapped in traffic where you can't even get out. So definitely consider first a local location to be able to bug out to, and then expand that out.
Terry Williams says, hospitals are at max here in Georgia. Do you think things will shut down again?
Well, according to Biden, he's saying we're going to have a dark winter. So, I really expect to see a lot of that going on. In fact, here in South Carolina, COVID is really raging right now. One of the things, though, that I'm seeing is, and we've had a number of people that we know that have had it, they get really sick, or some of them get mild symptoms, and then they come out of it pretty quickly. But it is a danger, especially to certain groups. But yeah, I feel like that we're probably going to see some shutdowns, and it's going to be difficult to get any kind of medical care. So again, make sure that you do have vitamin C, D3, zinc. A lot of doctors are recommending that for people that have COVID. When they go in, they say these are the things you need: vitamin C, D3, and zinc. And those seem to be able to do a lot toward this. But you need to have some medical supplies at home, and you don't really want to get out as much as possible if things do get a little ramped up.
Julie Michelle Van Helden asks, what type of shelter do you carry in your get home bag?
Well, I have a number of different things. I have a Woobie, which is military, poncho liners. Also have one of the Arc'teryx. It's actually a reflective tarp. It has the Mylar inside. It's really well made, and you can wrap up in it. And then, I have one thing that's really important to have in your bag is a heavy meal trash bag. You can lay that down on the ground. You can use it to carry things. I mean, there's a bazillion uses for it, but that's also part of the shelter. A lot of paracord, so I can tie things up if I need to. And so those are some of the things. We also have some other things that we put in there. Having a good tent, a small little snuggie or something that you have in there is also a great way to get through a tough situation.
Christine Sullivan asks, can a bug out bag and a get home bag be one and the same?
Yes. Really, that's what I kind of do. I do have a full on bug out bag. And in fact, I've been planning to do an update video on it, but I have one from a long time ago. But really, my essential items are in my get home bag. Because, I mean, what I want to do is if I'm broken down somewhere or I'm somewhere where I need to travel back home, that's really where I want to come. And so that's pretty much what I do. And if you're carrying your vehicle anyway, it doesn't quite matter as much the size, except that you want to make sure that you can carry that on your back.
Scoot2992 says, question, is the 22 long rifle good enough for longer distant home defense situations? I only have a shotgun and handguns.
Well, 22 is going to give you more distance than a shotgun for sure. And honestly, even for pistols, I mean, you can shoot at 100. Well, you can shoot distance with 22, but really effective distance, outside of 100 yards, you're really kind of pushing it. One thing that I did a few years ago with when we first started our prepper group was a lot of people were in the same boat. They had a pistol, they had a shotgun, they didn't have a rifle. And so we went and bought, now this was when Mosin and Gantz were really inexpensive. I think they were like $100 or something. And we went and bought those and bought a bunch of ammo because it gives them a long range capability. One thing you need to be careful of, even if it's just a hunting rifle, is that if you don't have anything to be able to reach out, somebody could get 300 yards out from you and pin you down. And so it's good to be able to have something to answer back with. And so, you might want to really consider finding some kind of hunting rifle, even if it's a single shot. It'll give you a lot more capability and range. But make sure that you can find ammo for it, because that is one of the things right now that's kind of tough.
Shane O'Brien asked, is there any store in Oregon that you recommend? A store that has everything I need since I'm new to emergency preparedness.
Unfortunately, I'm not familiar with Oregon, but I would, maybe you want to watch Wrangler Star. Cody lives in Oregon. He lives in the east part of Oregon, and he's a wealth of knowledge and could possibly be able to help you more in that area. Also, I know USN ER Doc, who's a good friend of mine that's in Portland as an emergency doctor. USN ER Doc would be a great resource, and you could probably get in touch with him directly faster than you could with Cody. So, get in touch with USN ER Doc. Dave he's a personal friend of mine. He and Beth are just awesome, and they do a lot of prepping.
Joey Michelle Van Helden asked, PCC or 300 Blackout for get home gun?
One thing about a 300 Blackout is you're going to have more capability. You're going to have more range. And two, with a 300 Blackout, you can have a shorter barrel and it'll still function really well. So that is one thing. Of course, with your PCC, you still have about 150 yards, and you're probably going to be fine with that. And if you have magazine compatibility with a sidearm, that makes it nice as well. So, you could go either way with that. I think that the 300 to give you a little more range than your PCC or your standard small little carbine or pistol.
Scotty Pierce asked, if you are unable to get to a doctor, are there any alternatives for antibiotics if needed?
We use colloidal silver, and we've been using that for a number of years for a number of things. We've consulted doctors about it. I can't, they're very funny about it with the medical association, but it's something that has been used since World War I and before as an antibiotic. Also, fish antibiotics are actually made on the same line that regular human antibiotics are used. The biggest problem is being able to connect that antibiotic with the illness or the symptom that you're dealing with. And so my wife's an RN and she has a book and she can go through it and she knows a lot of things. I would consider getting some kind of reference book to be able to know. And again, honestly, fish antibiotics are one that a lot of people use. I know Skinny Medic did a video on that, but colloidal silver is also something that we use. And you can actually make colloidal silver at home, which we do. We make our own. And it works. It just does.
Adrian Lauderdale asks, how would you handle family that don't recognize the current state of the world and remain to be ignorant to the importance of preparing?
Well, it's funny to me because a lot of people that have been kind of, indifferent have woken up to because of what's gone on. But the thing is, we live in this comfortable world. We live in the best country in the world even now. And unfortunately, things are a little bit crazy, and that may change. But I think people are lulled, and they don't really think anything's ever going to happen. As far as family goes, I'll just tell you a personal story. Is my father-in-law and brother-in-law, we were driving. We were for Christmas holiday, and we were going to the store to pick up some things. And they were talking all about, the political situation and this and that, what's going on here, and talk. And I was just sitting back there, and I finally said, guys, we can talk about this all day long, but if you're not doing something about it, it's insanity. You've got to be putting together some basic survival items in case something were to happen. So just talk is talk. If they're not even talking about it, I don't really know what you can do. Our family is open to it and they support it, but do they take action? And that's one of the big things that I'm trying to push right now, guys, is take action. All this stuff that we have here, we can use it. We can use it later. If we don't use it now, it comes in handy later.
Hillbilly Prepper says, hi, Sensible Prepper. What's your favorite EDC pew pew?
Is the Glock G43X. And I do carry the SIG P365 if I want to go appendix. I want to kind of keep things trim. But I typically carry the G43X with the Shield S15 magazines. It gives me 15 round capacity, the same as my Glock 19 in a smaller package. And so that's I've just been kind of stuck on it because it just works.
Brian Gorski asks, what type of prepper items can you legally bring on flights?
Well, you need to go to the TSA rules and see what is available. I mean, there are a number of things that you can take, but it's funny. I went on a cruise one time and I had a ZT tolerance and it was a 3-inch blade and it said anything 3.5 inches and below you can take. So they actually fussed about it at first. And I said, this is what you say on your website. So they let me through. But my wife had one of these polymer, like with 2 ears, something, like on your keychain, and they made her throw that away. So, TSA, I've carried firearms on TSA, couldn't carry them on the plane, as far as I had to, they had to put it in storage or whatever. But, as far as carrying it, I don't really know. In fact, I used to fly a lot, and I haven't flown in the past few years. So I would just recommend going to TSA, their website, and they do a pretty good job of talking about prohibited items. And so you can probably work it around that.
John Taylor asks, what do you think is easier to train non-weapons folks on, SKS or AR platform?
The AR. I mean, I love the SKS. I have a number of them, actually. I've always loved those rifles. But the one thing about the AR is it's very intuitive once you start messing with it. And, you've got your detachable magazines. It just makes it a lot easier to be able to use. SKS is definitely viable, and it's a great round, the 7.62 by 3.9. You do have your 10-round fixed box magazine. It's pretty simple. But as far as the reason why the SKS is no longer being used as a military firearm or, that style is because there are better options. And so I don't see any reason. If that's what you have, I think you need to go with it, and it will give you some good capability. But I think you're advancing with your capability if you have an AR-15, and the recoil is less on your AR. 5.56 or 223. It's very easy and mild on the recoil. So I really feel like that's a better option. But again, if that's all you have is an SKS, then go with it.
The Maverick Prepper asked, what is a Woobie?
A Woobie is a poncho liner. And in fact, the Rangers are really big on Woobies. And it's usually a kind of well, the ones I have, because we have different ones, we put them in our kits. It's just more like a nylon type covering, and you can wrap up in it. It'll keep you warm. You can use it for shelter. I mean, it's a great item to have.
CB asks, should I store oil? I'm assuming like for your car.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. I mean, anything that you're going to need to maintain your car, it would be smart to do. And also having your tools. That's another big thing, is having tools set aside for that. Okay, we're going to go to one more question, then we're going to go back, and we'll come back to questions in a minute.
Sean Penrod asks, question, do you have any suggestions about where to acquire an Ifak?
Medical Gear Outfitters. Medical Gear Outfitters, Skinny Medic, they have a fantastic setup for, I mean, it's just a great source. Also, Coyote Tactical Solutions. I think I got this from them. This is a great, really, you know, in fact, it's low drag, low snag is what they say, but it's got the, you know, all your essentials in here. And this really goes on a battle belt. I like that, or goes on my plate carrier. But also amp3.net is USN ER Docs website. That's also a great resource for different IFAKs and things like that. Okay, so let's continue our list. That's some really great questions and very pertinent to what we're talking about. But let's see, number 6 would be some kind of battery backup. Now, for me, having some kind of solar panel, I'll drop it, having some kind of solar backup, we've tested these. And in fact, I don't even know where we got this, but there's a lot of them on the market. But this is one way that even if you have a power outage, you can keep your phones charged, you can keep your flashlights charged. If you have rechargeable flashlights, and you should have some OLED flashlights. But this is a great way to keep your essential items charged. We also have one of the humbless generators that is solar powered. We can keep things going. In fact, we even kept our refrigerator going for a good while. Also having, you know, batteries. And this is my battery daddy. In fact, I've got a review of this coming up. But this just stores your batteries. It keeps all your different batteries in one location. But having those, having those batteries and your power backup, even, you know, your standard generators, if you have a home generator, but being able to keep some kind of power. And, you know, if you live in an apartment, you're going to be really, you know, limited. And so having a small little solar panel is excellent. Getting your batteries put back, you know, guys, candles, things like that to keep lighting going. And then, you know, then that moves into your heat source. What kind of heat source do you have? You know, if you have wood heat, wood stove, great. Propane, make sure that your tanks are full. Make sure maybe you want a larger tank. Getting your gas logs. Also kerosene. If you don't have anything else, at least you can have a kerosene heater to be able to keep warm. With winter coming, it's really important. If we have some kind of power outages, and guys, I don't know if you read about this, but just a few weeks ago, right after the Nashville bombing, they caught a bunch of teenagers that were trying to sabotage a power grid. And so there are options. In fact, a lot of the left right now, they're looking for different ways to be able to disrupt utilities. That ought to make you think. So a lot of stuff we're talking about here is pertinent and is important. It's not just like hurricane, tornado, things like that. It's about survival in a number of different ways. Guys, the thing is, really, if you're set up to survive through a natural disaster, you're in a good position to stand up to man-made disasters, which, you know, are really possible. One thing I do is follow the Forward Observer, and they're an intel group that goes in and talks about certain threats in the U.S. And that's one of the big things, is the left is really planning a lot of things coming up, even after the election. And so they really want to do this to be able to get, you know, their way, get some power going. And so, guys, there just are a lot of threats. And that's one of the things about food, is there's some threats coming to the distribution systems. And, you know, that is a very fragile system. And so, in fact, I did a video just recently about our fragile distribution system, our just-in-time. People, you know, grocery stores have about 3 days worth of food. We saw that at the beginning of the year. So having some supplies and things ahead, guys, it's insanity if you don't. I mean, it really is. Okay, now we're going to groups. Now, one thing about groups is, guys, make sure that you start networking with different people. Your neighbors are the best option, family, friends. Those are some of your better options to be able to get to know them. You want to have people in your group, though, that you have some commonality with, you have common bonds with. We have a group of about 30, and that's where we stopped it. But now we have started networking with other groups. And so having different groups set aside to be able to network and to work together. And we do a lot of planning together. We do some exercises. We have a great time. In fact, we took all the guys out to the range. We're taking the ladies down. We're doing some basic firearm training, just for self-defense, to provide for your home. It's not any kind of militia or anything like that. We're not into that. We want to protect our families and us, which I'm going to get into that in just a minute. But the big thing is, guys, is, like-minded people. It's like one Sunday morning, I was laying in bed. I woke up and I was laying there and I was thinking about all the things that are going on in our country. And I just had this feeling of dread. And then I just realized, I said, you know what? We have a group. We have a group of people that are standing together. If I need something, I can call them and they'll be there. If they need something, I'll be there. And so, guys, right now, people are really wide open. Yeah, like the one guy earlier with the question that said his family's oblivious. A lot of people are open right now to being prepared. But we need to encourage them to take the next step and get prepared. And so then we can rely on each other. Guys, this spring, you need to start thinking about your gardens, going ahead and getting some vegetables, getting your seed, getting it ready, and having the means to be able to plant gardens in the spring. It's just something that is just smart to do. And so having a group allows you to work together, because here's the thing, guys, people are going to be your number one asset in a survival situation. They don't even have to have specialized skills or anything else. This coming weekend, I'm going down to the Fieldcraft Survival's having a survival survival class on Saturday. And, it's just basic. And I'm just going down. In fact, a buddy of mine, NC Hill, is going to meet me down there. And we're just going to go to the class. It's going to help me brush up on some basic things. And, it's just more people that are going to be attending that I can network with. There are more people that in my church, whether it's where I go, where my shooting club, networking with those people and just building good relationships. One thing you do want to do, though, is avoid people that are arrogant, have strong egos, and most of those people have insecurity. So you don't really want to rely on those people. And so you want to find people that are really good, solid, that'll do what they say. And one thing too is, if you have people in your life that are indifferent or they talk a lot, but they never do anything, you can't push a rope. So don't try to talk them into anything. Let them decide and then just back off from them. And I've had to do that a number of times. Have people come up to me and, oh man, I need to talk to you about this. I need to do this. We need to plan something. I'm worried about my family. And then I don't hear from them again. And I'm going, well, obviously it wasn't that big of a priority. And so, working together with people that you can connect with, that you get along with. And one thing I will advise is that if you have a group, guys, don't try to be the leader, or if you have someone that's trying to be the leader and they're trying to tell people what to do. And the one thing that my philosophy is, we have our group, and there's a lot of men, a lot of very professionals, big professionals in there. And one thing that we do is we work together, and it's more of a group together, and we kind of coexist in a good, with good relationships. And nobody's trying to be the boss. Now, for me, I'm the leader because I bring subjects and we talk about certain things, but I'm not the leader as in I'm going to boss people around. And so if you get people like that, it's best to avoid them. Be careful about certain groups that have certain political agendas. You want to make sure that you stay clear. You can find yourself in jail just because you're associated with them, or you can find yourself under scrutiny. Be careful when you do with that. Firearm training is great, and you need to be doing that, but make sure that it's not toward a certain end, at least at this point. And so big thing is family and friends that you can count on, which leads us to the next thing is, guys, a lot of people, and I see this a lot in the comments where people go, well, nobody's going to do anything. Nobody's done anything. People are just sitting around and, they're all talk and, having all these protests, but nobody's doing anything about it. Understand, guys, that there's nothing that we can do about it to a certain extent. We were at an event this past weekend, and it was put on by Veritas Voice, American Reformation, and the United Patriots Alliance. And these are groups that are just they're good, solid people. They want to restore America to its original traditions, its values. And so we went down. There was about 300 to 400 people that showed up. They had one of the things that was really important is they had local law enforcement there. In fact, the sheriff of Greenville County was there and talked about with standing up for the Constitution and doing what's right. There were some state senators or representatives there. And one guy in particular, he said, we are fighting back any kind of government intrusion into the state of South Carolina that would go against our principles. And it was really refreshing that you could get these people together. So one of the first things that I want to recommend is, number one, you have a responsibility to yourself and your family. Number one, that is your number one responsibility outside of your relationship to God. That is number one. But but number two, which is really close, is your family. Is protecting your family, providing for your family. Having the basic necessities and seeing what's going on ahead and going ahead and planning out. Number two is your community. You have a responsibility to keep your community safe and to help those around you. And then we go into the county and then, of course, expand to the state. We have a lot more influence with local government than we do with the national federal government. We don't have any control over that, honestly. We can cast our votes and make our phone calls, but honestly, the most effect that you're going to have is in your local and state, county, city, community governments. And you can make an influence there. You want to make sure, though, that and I know some of you guys live in some really left areas that are very leftist ideas, that are more socialist minded. And, that is what it is. But you still have to do what you can, connect with the people that are like-minded, and really, honestly, in our country right now, we're so divided. It's not necessarily altogether geological or geographical. It's mixes. I mean, even in our state, which is really conservative overall, there's still a large element of people that are more toward the left or more toward liberal. I hate to say liberal because there are a lot of good liberal people that want good things. We don't always agree on everything, but they're still good. They want the basics for America and the traditions. They love capitalism. They love the republic. I don't want to say democracy because we don't live in a democracy, but they love those things. And so being able to connect with people of like mind and to really make an effect on your local politicians. Guys, get in touch with your local politicians. I know here in South Carolina, they have their cell phones listed. You can call them directly and you can let them know, hey, just want to let you know about this. Our House of Representatives our U.S. House of Representatives is a staunch conservative. He is awesome, Jeff Duncan. We really think a lot of him. I still call him and say, thank you for your stand, because it gives them more confidence to stand for the right things. And when he's out there doing what he really feels is right, he has the confidence knowing that his constituency backs what he does. If you have someone that you just can't stand, that's absolutely doing everything against what you believe, call them anyway. Put the pressure on, because I don't care who you are, it affects you. Now, they're going to still probably do what they're going to do, but at least they know there are people in their area that don't agree with them. And you need to put the pressure on. So, and then you have some that are riding on the fence and they need to be held accountable. We have Lindsey Graham. He's good in some areas. He is off in others. And so we have to keep him accountable. Honestly, my wife was trying to call into their office this past week, and there were so many phone calls. The phone lines were completely busy. She finally got in and was able to leave a voicemail. People are really hammering those guys. And so you need to be doing the same. Don't just sit back and let the world go around you and then have your stuff. You need to be able to make a difference and make a change. Because here's the thing, guys, if you ever get yourself in a situation where you have to do something, that you never would have thought you were going to do, you need to be doing all the things you can to stop that before they happen. And then when it's uncontrollable, it's uncontrollable. So make sure that you definitely get involved in local government. It is super important. Even your homeowners association, be involved in that. Because, now, thank goodness we don't have a homeowners association, but, we have our own deal. But still, this neighborhood is very important that we stay safe. I care about the people on our street, and I want to take care of whoever I can. And so, guys, think locally. It's very important. And then One of the last things, and it's not the last, obviously, but it's number 10 on the list, is make sure that you're spiritually aligned. Now, I'm a Christian. I believe I want to be spiritually aligned with God and his principles. I want to be a person of love, a person of caring. I want to help others. I want to do for others. Honestly, it's the reason why I started my YouTube channel is we had so many people asking questions, so many people that were in fear. And I just want to say, hey, look, don't live in fear. Get yourself prepared and do what you can. And then let God take care of the rest of it. And so pray for our nation, guys. We need that more than ever. That is the best thing we can actually do. But just like Noah, he prepared anyway. He was commanded to prepare. And so don't feel like that, oh, whatever, I'm going to be okay. God's got me. Well, God has you, but you've got to be prepared as well. So let's go to some questions. Well, right before we do, though, I do want to mention again, because we really do appreciate it, Sportsman's Guide, $20 off every $100 or more purchase using Such in the coupon code, just SOOTCH. And guys, if you're part of their buyers club, which I am, I mean, I buy things from Sportsman's Guide. If I call them, they'll send me something, whatever. But I just buy things because I find a lot of things that I need, and I just want to get them. And I'm part of the buyers club. Everything is shipped for free, including all my gas cans. And that would have been very expensive. So just want to give them a big shout out because we appreciate them. Okay.
Lone Wolf Bushcraft asked, favorite fixed blade knife?
The SE4. The SE4. It's one of those knives that I've done a lot with. I've used it a lot. I've tested it. We've done a lot of cutting with it. In fact, I cut myself one time with an SE Azula. And honestly, I've cut myself a number of times doing knife reviews. And that was the first time I honestly panicked because I know what SE is all about. There's some really good knives out there, some really high dollar knives in excellent quality. But just for a good, solid, decent quality knife that's not super expensive, they run around the $100 plus range. That is my favorites. What we use, what Sarah Mack has, and our family. Now, I also like, and which is funny, if you want a budget knife, the Glock Field knife is an excellent knife. I mean, it's a $25 knife. It's built like a tank. There's a lot of things you can do with it. But have a number of knives. But the SE just tends to be the one that I go back to.
Zachary Rhinolia asked, good day, Sensible Prepper. Is 30-liter survival backpack good for a bug out bag?
30 liters getting a little bit low, a little bit short, but it would be great for a get-home bag. But I think, as far as a really big full 45-liter bag or something like that for 72 hours, if you're looking just for your minimal basics, your 30-liter would probably be fine, but you're going to be a little tight. To me, I feel like you'll be a little tight. So I would probably up it as far as a bug out bag. I would up that to a larger bag. But yeah, a get-home bag, it would be fine.
OG Brick 420 asked, what brand of seeds? Most seeds these days will not produce seeds because of the GMO.
What I like to do, and it's not necessarily brands, there is one. In fact, we just ordered a bunch, and I wish I'd remembered the name of it, but they are very specific in having good harvest. One problem you're going to have with non-hybrid seeds is that the GMO seeds have been designed to be able to withstand a lot of pestilence and a lot of pests, and they produce high yields. But the problem is once you have that crop, you can't go back and plant them because they're hybrid. They don't produce, or if they do, they produce really horrible, very weak. Having non-hybrid seeds is something that to me is an important part because we can harvest those seeds. Now, this year we did a garden with non-hybrid seeds, and we had some things that did great. We had some that didn't do so well. So you got to get into gardening. I mean, it is a learning process, no matter what Mike Bloomberg says. There is a lot behind gardening. It's skill. There's a lot of skill involved. But you got to face blight. We had some problems with that. We had problems with some of the insects. We had to know how to deal with that. And so those are some things. And then the harvest, again, was not quite what we really wanted. We still had a lot of vegetables, and we did really well. But it is a process. But non-hybrid seeds are going to allow you to be able to replant that seed later on. And so that is one thing I would just highly recommend. But do your research. There are some websites. In fact, when I was doing research on these seeds, They had videos about a lot of their processes and what they do. And so you want to find a seed company that has that kind of information.
Felix T asks, Sensible Prepper, how can you tell people that they need to prep without offending them?
Well, I mean, if they just look at the national news, I can't imagine someone just thinking that prepping is dumb anymore. Uh, I said this years ago. I did a video and it said preppers are crazy, but they're not as crazy as they used to be. And that applies huge right now. I mean, we've seen what happened at the beginning of COVID-19 when all the lockdown started and the grocery stores ran out. I don't know if you know, but most of your stores now are still limiting, here in our area, are limiting amounts of toilet paper that you can buy. Typically, they reserve to one. So just if basic items are hurting, and then with the civil unrest that's going on, it's kind of taking a break for a little bit in some areas. We're still seeing it out in Portland, but it's coming to a city near you. In fact, they're doing planning right now, and this is from the Forward Observer. They're actually watching some of these blogs and these websites. They're planning to start going after smaller cities because they want to turn this thing around. It's not just for the bigger cities. So I would bring up different things that are going on in the country and be able to bring it in. But here's the thing, guys. When you talk to people, let's say you just bring up something, you say, man, there's a lot of craziness going on. We've been kind of putting back a little food. See what their response is. And if they're like, that's dumb, I'm not doing that, then just drop it and leave it. Find people that are going to be receptive to your message. They may be a little bit indifferent, but once you start talking to them, you can change your mind. I've done it a number of times. People that are like, I don't know. You start talking about some things and they're like, maybe I should. Because a lot of people are tuned out. They're tuned out, or they're so involved in the big picture, they're not looking at themselves to be prepared. So, you just have to kind of go along as you can and just fill it out.
Christine Salva asks, Such, how much cash would you say should you have stashed away on hand just in case? Thank you.
Well, a nice amount. I mean, as much as you can put back in one sense. What we put back about $2,000 usually at all times, and then we put supplement cash back in different ways. But one thing I would recommend, because here's the problem with cash: if you have too much cash, we can face inflation, high inflation, and if we do, the value of the dollar is going to drop down to nothing in a worst case scenario. You can really lose the value. One thing that I've done is I've taken and purchased silver. I've sold some of my firearms because I have a few extras. I've sold them, and when I sell them, I just go and buy silver, silver, 90% just coin silver that people can identify. If I have a Mercury dime and it's pre-1964 or 64 and below, I've got a 90%. People recognize it. So cash is great, and I think you definitely should have some. To me, again, I like to minimum of $500, but I think a $2,000 a mark is good. Sometimes, like in Nashville, that just happened, that bombing, which was just a limited event. All their ATMs closed. I mean, there are people that are looking to destroy 5G, and with that, they could destroy different things where you don't have cell service, which affects ATMs, which affects grocery stores and stores. So having cash is really a critical part. But I wouldn't have a ton of cash as much as I would have a nicer roll of cash and some silver. And it's funny because I hear people sometimes go, in fact, I watched this video the other day, and in fact, I may have to just address it because it says, well, I don't want to go into it. I don't want to make the guy feel bad, but the fact is he was talking about lies that preppers do that have, and one of them was silver. And he goes, why would I want silver? If I have a hurricane or something, I'm not going to go out and start spending silver. In a really critical situation, countries all over the world have used precious metals. Argentina's one that used, stores opened up and started taking silver as trade because the inflation was killing money. And so silver is something to me that you need to watch. Plus, it's continuing to go up in value. When I first bought most of my silver, it was at $5 an ounce. I'm not sure what it is today, but it was getting right around the $30 an ounce here lately. And so I have still purchased that silver, not as an investment, but to protect my wealth. So you can kind of put those two together, but I would definitely have a reserve of cash.
Benny Ramirez asks, what home defense should I have if I cannot have a gun?
Pepper spray. Pepper spray is a good one to get started with because it really disables what people are doing. I would look at a good, billy club of some sort, a small baseball bat. You know, you're just really limited, unfortunately, if you don't. I've heard of some guys that actually have swords in their home, in those kind of situations. Check your local laws, of course. But there are some other options, but, you're really limited. One thing I will say, if you're physically able, is to get into some kind of self-defense class. Self-defense, because really hands-on, having some abilities is going to put you apart from those who don't have the ability. But I'll tell you a little story. Years ago, when we lived up in North Carolina, and we lived out in the country. And so one night we came in late. We'd just come in. It was 1 a.m, and I had finished unloading the car. I took my 1911 at the time. This has been, well, actually, Sarah Mac was 2 years old. I put my 1911 up on the mantle right there next to the door, and I went and I sat on the couch. Somebody drove right through our front yard, right up to the front porch. Our driveway was over here, so they just came through I don't know where they were coming from. They just drove all the way through up to the front door. So I came to the door. I took my gun. I just put it down by my side. I didn't want to threaten them at first. And so I opened the door. There was a screen, little divider, and there was this guy standing there with long hair, and he was drugged out of his head. And over the course of time, he argued that there was somebody he was supposed to meet there, and we argued about it for a while. I did a video on this, on why I own a gun. And finally, I just told him, I said, get off my porch. And I stepped back, and he saw my gun, and he just looked at me. And I thought, I'm going to have to shoot this guy if he comes in the door. And I didn't want to. I didn't want to do that. And I said, go. And he kind of came out of his stupor, and he walked and got in his car. When I looked in the car, there were 3 other grown men in the car with it. Having a firearm was what really saved me that night. If I'd had a baseball bat or whatever, against 4 determined attackers, you don't really have a chance. So, it's just what it is. So I would get myself as ready as possible. I'd make sure my house was secure as possible. But without a firearm, it's the great equalizer. When you have multiple attackers, you're really at their mercy. So do what you can. And I hate to not have the better answer, but really the firearm is the great equalizer.
Donald Sinyard asks, any good channels you know of that cover prepping and preparedness with toddlers?
Oh, no, that's a good one. No, I know that Fieldcraft Survival, maybe a while back, they did something talking about kids. I do have a kid's bug out bag. It's not about toddlers. That's a whole different ball game. And that's something, they're not going to really learn a lot of skills, but no, I don't really have anybody. I wish I did. That would be something important, especially for young families.
Fun Sponge 85 asks, what about K-bar knives? Are they still any good?
Yes, K-bar knives are excellent. I have one. It's just a traditional legendary knife, and definitely good, high quality.
Jeffrey Slinker asks, Such, did you cover a proper outhouse and use of quicklime?
No, but that is something very important, is to be able to have a way to go to the bathroom outside of your home. Just going outside and using the bathroom really causes a lot of problems, especially if you have a number of people that are going to the bathroom. It's one thing I haven't really done, and I haven't really researched. So I know you guys in the military probably know it better than anybody, especially if you've been, stationed somewhere. But that is something very important to consider. There can be, digging a trench, putting in gravel, lime for sure, having those kind of things. But that may be something that I really need to cover coming up in the next month or so. And so thanks for bringing that up. But yeah, there are some ways to do it, and I'm going to have to just defer to doing some research on it. But, that is an extreme. A lot of times, you do have water even when your electricity's out, because a lot of it's gravity fed or the water sources. But, that could also be tainted.
Joey Michelle Van Helden asks, how much food do you keep in your get-home bag?
Typically, I use the Lifeboat food bars. They're 3,600 calories. It's in a bar like this. It's a little bit of weight to it, but it gives you a lot of food in a small package. And so that's what we typically carry in our bags. The great thing is it keeps you from getting thirsty, which we have a water filtration system. I have one of the Frontier Filter Pros, some a bit larger. It's a filter straw. I love that. But having that food in there, it actually tastes like a moist graham cracker, almost like a pie crust, but yet a little bit heavier. And it's really tasty. In fact, one time years ago, I did a video. I think it was a 2,000 calorie bar. And during the video, I ate the whole bar. It was so good. So that's one thing. And there's a number of different brands out there, but SOS Lifeboat Food, I believe, is the one that I really like the best. Sometimes if you put like Cliff Bars and things like that, you have to change them out because they can go bad. So, you know, an MRE sometimes can be a little, and that can work. But to me, the Lifeboat Food gives you a heck of a lot more concentration of food or calories in your bag without minimal, you know, with the minimal space.
Brian Gorski asked, do you think it's better to have lots of water stored, or would a water source be better?
Water source, see, over long term, water source, I highly recommend the Berkey filter system. We use it for our everyday drinking water because once we started using it, we couldn't even drink water out of a tap. It's just so much better. But it will filter, I think each filter will filter 3,000 gallons of water. We have 4 in one. We gave our one with just 2 filters to my mom and dad, and they use it. And then I have one of the travel Berkeys, and then we have the little sport Berkeys. As far as long-term water source, you can't store enough water. I mean, you can fill up a warehouse with the water you really need. You need a gallon per person per day. So having a filter system that you can have portable water, we have a pool, so that is a portable water source. Or potable water source. Your hot water heater, that tank has water. You can use it. The toilet tank, not the bowl, but the tank, you can actually utilize that water. One thing that we used to do when we had storms, we used to have a well at another location, is when the power went out, the well went down. So what we'd have to do is if we knew a storm was coming up, we'd fill up our bathtubs full of water. And so we had that water source and we could use it. So those are just some things, you know, to consider. But water, you can only live 3 days without water. So, and the rule of 3. So water is critical, more critical than food, short term. And then for long term, you know, you got to be able to do it. So I would highly recommend the Berkey filter system. And it's great for the kitchen. It's great to be able to use drinking water, but then you have that water and it'll filter like anything. I mean, it is amazing what it'll do.
Judah Torgerud asked, what's a good collapsible water bottle or canteen?
Well, there's your military canteens now will actually collapse down, your 2-quart water bottles. And so I like military surplus stuff because it's tested, it's proven. It's not that there are things that aren't better out there, but I do like those. I think the Platypus is another one. And I do like regular hydration bladders, like your Camelbacks. Those are really good, and they do get pretty flat. So having a Camelback in your bag, to me, is just the best of both worlds. But, any of your, there's a number of them out there, but you want to make sure that it's not something that's cheap, something you just found on Amazon that's been imported. You want to get something that's good quality because you don't want that to leak out into your bag. But that is good to have that container. That's a very good part of having your bag. Sometimes I have a standard metal container that I can also cook out of. But having that flat, you can take it. If you have fine water, you can get it, and then you can filter it as you can. So that's a good idea.
Joey Michelle Van Helden asked, do you have any books you recommend to have? I've been getting the Foxfire books for a while.
Yes. In fact, I did a video on the Sensible Prepper channel of building a survival library, and there's a number of books. There's some that are missing that I actually didn't put on there just because I had, went over my head. But I keep a library of books just in case I don't have internet service or whatever, or power. And so a number of different books. The Going Home series is a novel, but it is fantastic. There are 10 books. For Fowl, in the Modern Survival Guide for the Coming Economic Collapse, is about actual events that happened in Argentina back in around 2000. That is a phenomenal book. It's a how-to, but it tells you about a lot of the things that happened there that you can relate to here, and they do relate. Argentina is a very cultured country. There's a lot of Europeans that settled in Argentina as well, so their culture is a lot like ours. but of course it's with the Hispanic, flair to it. But they definitely, a lot of similarities of things that I'm seeing now here in the U.S. happen down there. And so those are good books as well. Then I have some others like the SAS Survival Manual. That's a tried and true. I mean, it's thick and it's got a lot of information. But there is a video, check that out. But it just is my survival library. There's a lot of different ones. All right, it's 1 o'clock. 1 o'clock. So I'm going to run over the list. I'm just going to run over each point. I'm not going to go through any more of the details. But guys, these are things that to me are vital, and for you to make sure that you're getting yourself prepared. And of course, the first is your basics: your food, water, your hygiene, your cleaning supplies, your toilet paper, those things, your water, and then you have your go bag, having some kind of get home bag. And however you want to set that up, it's a very personal thing. So set up your bug out bag or get home bag, keep it in your vehicle, keep it in your trunk, keep it somewhere, keep it secure. Gasoline, keep your cars filled. Gas storage, stable, or some way to stabilize the gas for long-term fuel storage. And then we have your security, having lights, having a security system, having a driveway alarm, having different ways to be able to identify so you're not surprised. The element of surprise is knocked out. Also with your home security, you may have a firearm, like the one guy said, he can't have a firearm. And so what are some measures you can take with pepper spray, with, even with some kind of, stick or baseball bat or something? You're really limited without a firearm, but having that is definitely something that's better than nothing. And being prepared, having some kind of, physical training, some self-defense training. And that goes with your firearms too. It's really important to get firearms training. And then we have gear organization. Make sure your gear's ready. Make sure that you have your Minuteman stuff set up, and that if you need it, you can go to it. It's in one location. You have it ready to go. And then we have, some kind of power sources, whether it's solar energy, whether it's your battery backup, whether it's generators. But again, you'll need fuel for that. Unless you're running a propane generator, make sure that your propane tanks are full. And then we have our heat source, which goes along with your propane, but also wood and gas and different things that you have to be able to kerosene heater if you live in a smaller area. The little propane ventless heaters, they just fit on your wall. Those things are great. You can get some propane tanks with it, and it at least get you through the wintertime. And then, of course, organizing a group, getting together with like-minded people. Even if it's just one or two guys, it's better than none. But a nice, good-sized group. To me, about 30 is about the max. Anything above that, you start getting splinter groups and things. But then network within other groups. And that's a big one, guys. Groups are big. And then, of course, get involved in your local government. Get involved in state, county. Get involved in city. Get involved with your homeowners association. Get involved with whatever affects you in your community. And because that's where we're going to have the most impact. And then, of course, last but not least, your spiritual alignment. Make sure you're praying for our nation. That is the most vital part. So, guys, I really appreciate you guys being here. Again, we really thank Sportsman's Guide for offering the discount of $20 off every $100 or more purchase using SOOTCH, SOOCH, in the coupon code. It works because I've used it a number of times. And they've got all kind of military surplus stuff. You can get your Woobie there. You can get your gas cans there. You can get a lot of other stuff there and new things. So just a great resource. And again, we really appreciate it. I want to thank Sarah Mack over here on the computer. I did thank her earlier. She set all this up. We really miss Robbie Wheaton today. He's a great resource. And in fact, I was on the phone with him for a good while this morning. But he really misses being here. He'll be here next week. And guys, the main thing is don't be scared. Be prepared. It keeps you from being panicked. It keeps you from making rash decisions. And here's the facts. If you don't need it and you don't use it in a critical situation, it's always something you can use for other things, because life just throws us curves. And having all this stuff set aside is just smart. So be strong, be of good courage. God bless America. Long live the Republic.